Hello and welcome to the PRINCE2 pre-course videos, and this video is about an introduction to PRINCE2. So PRINCE2, Prince standing for Projects in a Controlled Environment. So trying to bring some framework or structure to our projects in order, of course, to make them more successful. PRINCE2 defines a project as a temporary organisation that is created for the purpose of delivering one or more business products according to agreed business case. So remember that we're aligning the project with the business to make sure that the project is worthwhile. Project management in general is based around this fairly straightforward loop, where we're going to create a plan to deliver something that we would then delegate the work to those people best suited to do it, those subject matter experts. And we're going to monitor the work that they're doing in order to make sure that it's in line with the plan. If it is, then that's great. If it isn't, then we're going to have to apply some kind of control and we're going to have to adjust the plan. This then goes on to delegate, monitor, control. So we continue around this loop throughout the project. In order to bring more control, we need to make sure that everybody within the project understands what they have to do, that they've agreed what they're doing, that this is documented as necessary, and that we then follow what we've agreed to do. Now, within a project, there are certain elements that we need to consider, and these are principles. So our PRINCE2 project is based on principles. There are some themes. So these are aspects of project management which we need to manage, things like plans and change and themes. We'll also need to consider processes. So what processes we do need to carry out at certain times during the project in order to get things done. So these are our main elements, and added to that is tailoring. So whilst we could use the themes and the processes in their to their full extent, it might be more sensible to tailor them in order for them to suit the project environment. And this way we've a more chance of being successful. Let's have a look at these in a bit more detail. Firstly, the principles. So our principles are generally considered to be universal, so they apply to everything, whether that's project, stage, the work of the teams and the team managers. They've been chosen because they found to work and they continue to do so, so therefore they're self-validating. And in general, our principles are designed to be empowering, so allowing everybody to work within their own level without undue supervision. What are the principles? Well, we have 7 principles, and these are, as we can see here, starting with continued business justification. So this is making sure that we have a viable business case for the project right from the beginning, throughout, until the end. And if the business case doesn't stack up, then we should recommend the project stops. Next, we've got learn from experience. So it makes absolute sense that we should learn lessons from not only the past, prior to the project, but also any lessons that we identify as we're going along within the project. Defined roles and responsibilities. So it's important to make sure that we have the right roles, and we'll see more of those when we come to the organisation video, but we need the right roles and they need to understand their responsibilities. And that way we have much more better chance of succeeding. Managed by stages. It's important that we try not to understand the project big picture, that we can break it down into much more manageable chunks. This way we're better able to understand them, to measure them, and to communicate about them. It's also useful when we're monitoring and controlling, because we can monitor and control as we go along using those stages, those bite-sized chunks. Managed by exception. This is where we are delegating down authority from one level to another, whether that's the project board to the project manager to team manager, and making sure that people have an understanding of their goal, whether perhaps for the project manager, the objectives for the stage, and that stage needs to be completed within the tolerances of time and cost, scope and quality. And this allows the project board then to get on with what they need to do, and the project manager to be able to manage their own level in the way that they see fit. Focus on products. So within our project, of course, the main aim of our project is to deliver some products which the business is going to use to enable the benefits. So we mustn't lose sight of that, even though, of course, often the organisation is very keen on things like time and cost. But as a project manager, remember our role is to deliver the project's product. And lastly, tailor to suit the project. So it's important that we tailor, and we should, nearly every project, be considering tailoring in some way or other. And we'll look more about what that means shortly. So that's our principles. Our next integrated element is tailoring. So we need to consider how tailoring might affect our project. We will generally need to tailor in some way or other, whether that's as part of a program, whether it's our project is large or small, or different type of project, perhaps like a research and development project. Do we need to consider if we're part of a customer supplier arrangement where we're delivering into a third party? How does that need to tailor? Are we part of a large organisation and a lot of parts of that organisation are going to be involved in the project? Also, are we going to be using the agile environment? Is the project as a whole agile, or are parts of it? So some of the work packages may be agile. How are we going to tailor to that? So we'll need to take that into account when we're tailoring our PRINCE2 project. And this means then that our PRINCE2 project will be much more appropriate to the environment that we're working in. Our next integrated element is themes. So these are, as it says, aspects of project management that need to be addressed throughout the project. So that's from the beginning through to the end. So we'll need to understand how we're going to set up and run the business case in order to confirm that we have business justification. We'll need to make sure we understand how we're going to organise the people within the project. So what roles do we need, and what are the responsibilities associated with those roles, and how that's going to play out throughout the project. We'll need to consider how we're going to manage quality. So how will we capture our requirements? How will they be communicated to the people that need to know, particularly team managers? How will we assess the quality of the products being delivered? We'll need to consider plans. So what levels of plans do we need? How are those plans going to be built? How are they going to be used during the project? We'll need to consider risk management and change management. So understand how we're going to capture issues and risks, how they're to be assessed, how they're going to be managed, where are they going to be recorded. And lastly, how are we going to monitor our progress? What controls do we need to put in place in order for us to be able to effectively monitor and control our project? So that's our themes. Then we've got the fourth integrated element, which is the processes. And we see here the process model. And as with the themes, and the principles, there are 7 processes. These 7 processes are made up of initially starting up a project process, and this is pre-project, before the project starts. And remember, this is going to be about identifying whether we have a viable, achievable and desirable project. So we're going to do the minimum work necessary to answer those questions. Given that that is good, then we see the beginnings of directing a project, which is going to run all through the project. But this first instance, it's going to be authorizing initiation. And so that means that we can now move into the initiation stage, where we're going to be doing initiating a project process. So this planning and preparation for the delivery part of the project. Again, that's going to be approved by directing a project by the project board. And we're moving into the delivery stages, where we're going to see the use of controlling a stage. That's where the project managers are going to be coordinating the work that's being carried out in managing managing product delivery. Obviously, controlling a stage and managing product delivery, working together closely as we work through the project, and in particular through the first delivery stage. We're then running up to the end of that stage, and we're going to be using a little bit of managing a stage boundary to help us to gather the information together for the project board to use to make a decision at the end of the stage in directing a project. And then we're into the next stage again using controlling a stage, managing product delivery, teams building the products. This will continue until we get to the final stage at the end of the project, where toward the end of that final stage we're going to be carrying out closing a project process. And this will be where we're going to hand over the products and tidy up the project and do the paperwork necessary in order to then go to the project board in directing to get a decision to close the project. So that's our process model, and we've seen our 4 integrated elements there: the principles, the tailoring, the themes, and the processes. I just want to finish off this section by just reminding us what project success means. And so this is based around our objectives. Okay, the project objectives, or they can also be translated down into stage objectives if necessary, but we'll concentrate here on the project level. This is the objectives. So there's cost, time, scope, quality, risk, and benefits. So each of these we'll need to consider and give it a value, and that then becomes the objectives for the project. They are in many cases interrelated. So for instance, if we want to change the time on a project, that might influence the cost if we had to use more resources, or it might be that we can change the scope, possibly even adjusting the quality in order to deal with that change in time. That might introduce extra risk. This could, if you change the scope and the quality, might impact on the benefits. Now, it's important for us to make sure that at the beginning of the project we understand these as best we can. Of course, we won't know for certain, but we can estimate. And we agree these with the project board. We'll need to make sure that we understand their priority. So which of these is most important, and then what's the kind of priority order from there? So is it that cost is most important, or we have to deliver by a certain time, or that scope is very important because we've got a compliance project, for instance. Additionally, we need to consider when we're describing these, the use of tolerances, because of course early on in the project we can't be sure about time and cost. We'll only know that at the end. But whilst we're estimating, we might like to put a tolerance around the time and cost. Of course, if you're running an agile project, then time and therefore potentially cost are both fixed. We can't change the quality, so therefore scope would have a tolerance. So we need to take these into account and think about them and get them agreed with the project board as early as possible in the project, preferably during starting up a project or early in initiating. These will then be confirmed as we go along, and we'll use them as our baselines to check our progress toward project success. So this has been a short introduction to PRINCE2, looking at the key areas, the key integrated elements that we need to understand and know. And you can use this information in this video for your revision during the course in preparation for your exams. Thank you very much.